Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Mobile Health Program webinar series for fall 2020. And it sure is a beautiful fall day. I'm going to be outside. We're broadcasting from outdoors today. I hope that you can join us as well, or be getting some fresh air at some point, or be sitting near a window to enjoy the beautiful fall skies and changing leaves. We have a great webinar in store for you today. And just to remind you again that this series is brought to you by the Mobile Health Program, which is part of the Partnership for Healthy Communities. And we know that health addresses many topics, from places where we live, where we work, where we play, where we pray, and how we engage with those spaces and are able to make healthy choices within them is a really important part of our overall health and well-being, and that of our communities and our neighborhoods. Our partnership is directed by Rita Landgraft. Our Associate Director is Aaron Knight. I'm Noelle Duckworth, the coordinator. Paulette Hussey-Caston is our Administrative Specialist. Christine Sawinski leads our Mobile Health Project. And Kate DuPont-Phillips is with our Healthy Communities Delaware statewide initiative. And we have all of you today. Thank you so much again for joining us on another Wednesday. For the newcomers, welcome. We're about 50-50, UD staff and faculty and students, and community partners or Delaware residents. So thanks for joining us today. A few housekeeping tips we always go over, just for those of you that might be new to the Zoom webinar platform. We do mute our audience lines, so you don't have to worry about muting or unmuting your phone line or sharing your video. If you do have questions, though, we ask that you pose them in the Q&A box, and there's a little picture of an icon there on your toolbar with a folder that says Q&A, and you can type it in there, and we know that that means you want that question posed to our presenters. We also encourage you to use chat just to say hello, connect. If you have any technical questions, can't hear us, say Noelle, get indoors. It's too windy outside, hopefully not, but that's okay. We want you to hear. And then today's webinar is being recorded and will be made available after the webinar on our mobilehealthdelaware.org website. And we'll be sending you an evaluation afterwards. So even if you've joined in the past, we do have some questions again to have you fill out. So please take a minute or two to do that if you would. All right, without further ado, again, I turn it over to our fearless leader, Christine Sawinski with the Mobile Health Program. Thank you.
Thanks, Noelle, and thank you to all of you for joining us today for our third webinar in our Fall 2020 series. I'm Christine Sawinski, the project coordinator for the Mobile Health Program, and I'm very pleased to be part of a collaboration to bring mobile health services to Delaware communities while building workforce development for University of Delaware graduate and undergraduate students. This program that is brought to you is under a partnership between University of Delaware, Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, Lieutenant Governor's Office, and St. Francis Healthcare. So again, we are very happy that you are able to join us today, and we do hope that you will be able to join us in future webinars that will be taking place on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. We are also offering a Lunch and Learn series once a month as well that you can attend. So please go to our website at mobilehealthdelaware.org to register for those events. As I said, the Lunch and Learn series, the next one is on October 23rd at 12 p.m. The topic is meal prep during COVID-19. And then our webinar today is nutrition and healthy eating on a budget. However, next week we have putting mindfulness into practice. So without me speaking any further, I would like to introduce you to our presenters today, Kristen Matheson, who is a University of Delaware dietetic intern, and Anya Leffelt, who is an Associate Director of the Dietetic Internship at the University of Delaware. Kristen.
Okay, hello. So yes, this is Eating Right on a Budget, and I'll introduce a little more about myself on the next slide here. So there's a picture of me very realistically cooking food. No, it's very posed, but the stove is on, food is being cooked. Like Christine said, I am a current UD intern for dietetics, and I also graduated from UD in 2018. Before I started the internship here, I was working as a nutritionist for WIC in Philly. And then just a little fun fact, my favorite food is eggplant. I was gonna say my favorite food is avocado, but that's a little too on the nose for someone in the nutrition field. So say my favorite way to eat eggplant is as a breaded eggplant sub, which brings me into my first question to test out our Zoom questions here. I mentioned I lived in Philly for a year and I currently live in Wilmington, but I'm originally from Long Island. So I wanted to know, all these different places have different slang for sandwiches. I want to know what you guys call a sandwich of this type. So let's see, we'll launch our first Zoom question here. Just practice using those for later in the presentation.
Thank you all for participating. We have about 85% who have voted so far on what they call a sandwich. So put in your vote now.
Okay, great.
Okay, we're at 90%, Kristen, so I'll go ahead and end the polling.
Okay, great. So then looks like most people call it a sub actually. I was expecting a lot of hoagies, but all right, I'll try to use that wording then for the rest of the presentation. Okay, so moving on to the outline of this presentation, we're going to start off with talking about what does healthy eating even mean. The word healthy can be a little abstract sometimes, but we'll get to some concrete ways of, what we're actually aiming for with that. Then we'll talk about some basics of meal planning, how that can be a strategy to help us eat healthier and save money, avoiding food waste and how that helps with saving money, and tools for shopping, which will help us put into practice all of this information we're going to learn, how we can actually apply it to real life. And finally, after that, we'll run through a little, a little simulation where we'll actually make meals using all these tools. Okay, so getting into what does eating healthy mean? This slide kind of has a lot on it, but what it's about is the set of behavior and goals and objectives that the US Department of Health and Human Services sets every 10 years to help us live healthier lives. So that's what they call this Healthy People 2020. That was established in 2010 for us to meet these goals in 2020. Now that it is 2020, they've come out with Healthy People 2030 that we'll check in again on in 10 years. So on the left side, you can see we have foods and nutrients that we want to work on increasing in our diet. And on the right side, we have nutrients that we want to eat less of or consume less of. So first, we want to eat more fruits and vegetables, and we want to increase our variety of fruits and vegetables because we know that they have lots of vitamins and minerals, but eating a greater variety, so different colors or different types, different ways of preparing them, will help us get the most vitamins and minerals from all of those fruits and vegetables. So the next thing, we want to work on increasing our whole grain consumption. And whole grains are oats or oatmeal, whole wheat bread, popcorn, brown rice. And I want to point out on the left side of the slide, you'll see the little whole grain sticker. So say you're in the bread aisle and you see honey wheat bread. And I mean, it's brown. Is it whole grain? I don't know. It has the word wheat in it. Looking for this sticker will tell you if it's a whole grain product or not. So keep that in mind as you're shopping. Calcium is the next nutrient that we want to work on increasing. Calcium is often found in dairy like cheese, yogurt, and milk, but you can also find it in a lot of canned fishes like salmon or sardines. And you'll also find it in cooked collards or turnip greens, as well as some beans and nuts. Okay, so the next two nutrients are bolded because those were added as part of the Healthy People 2030 goals. So for Healthy People 2030, we also want to work on increasing our consumption of vitamin D, which your body can typically make if you're out in the sunshine. That's that vitamin that, being in the sun will help your body make that vitamin D. But as we know, winter is coming and COVID, we're probably inside a lot more, so we're not getting that sunshine. We can get vitamin D in our diet by eating fatty fish like salmon and tuna as well. Egg yolks are also good for vitamin D. And then we also have a lot of breads and cereals have vitamin D added into them as well as calcium to help us boost our intake in our diet. And the last nutrient we want to work on increasing is potassium. So potassium is found in a lot of foods. It's found in a lot of fruits and vegetables like avocado, banana, mango, leafy greens, even winter squash and yams as we're coming into that season. It's also found in milk and yogurt. So another bonus for that dairy category. Okay, so moving on to the right here with nutrients we want to eat less of in our diet, we have solid fats, which you might also see on the nutrition label as saturated fat. And solid fats or saturated fats are going to be things like butter, shortening that you might see in pastries a lot, lard, poultry skin, or the oil that a lot of fried foods are fried in. So trying to keep away from those more often. And we also want to decrease our consumption of added sugar. So sometimes you think sugar, you think of dessert. Okay, I can just cut out sweets, desserts. But a lot of times there are added sugars hiding in cereals, granola bars or snack bars like these Nature Valley bars here. They could also be hiding in juices, energy drinks, or sport drinks. And then going off of energy drinks, those tend to have a lot of sodium as well, which is the last nutrient we want to work on decreasing in our diet. So sodium will be in energy drinks, but you might also think of salty snacks with sodium. So we want to try and cut down on those, as well as our sub at the bottom. Subs or hoagies can be high in sodium because of the processed meats and dressings on them. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the next slide where we have our My Plate and our nutrition facts label, which will both help with reinforcing those healthy people goals. And we're gonna come back to those goals a lot throughout the presentation. So the three key messages we wanna get from the My Plate is that half of your meal is fruits and vegetables. And you'll notice on the plate, that's about twice the amount of protein there. So keeping the protein size down, if you're a meat eater, will also help your budget because meat tends to be a little more expensive. But you can also go the less expensive route, getting protein from eggs and beans as well. The second key message of the My Plate is that half of the grains are whole. So that doesn't mean you have to have half white rice, half brown rice at a meal. Just means, maybe you have white rice for dinner, and then for breakfast you have a whole grain cereal or oatmeal, and just, trying to balance it out throughout the day. And the third key message is the dairy cup we have at the top there, which looks like, could be a cup of milk, but just knowing that could also be cheese or yogurt. And we don't want to forget the dairy because it's that good source that's going to provide calcium and vitamin D we talked about. Okay, and then on the right, we have the nutrition facts label. So I just wanted to point out where you can find items like saturated fat, sodium, and added sugars for when you're in the grocery store. So you'll see the red arrow at the top there points out the saturated fat, or that solid fat that we want to work on eating less of. So there's 1 gram in a serving of this food. The next yellow arrow, it shows that there are 160 milligrams of sodium in this food. And the third green arrow shows that there are 10 grams of added sugars in the serving, which you'll notice is less than the total sugars of 12 grams of sugar. So that means there's probably 2 grams of naturally occurring sugars, and what we want to focus on is decreasing the added sugar. Okay, so moving on. One strategy that can help us with eating healthier and saving money is meal planning. Okay. So meal planning is going to help us save money by outlining what meals you'll be making for the week. That way you know what you'll need to be buying for the week. Overbuying random items that aren't going to contribute to a meal or snack can be a waste of money then. It's also going to help save money by reducing the trips to the grocery store each week. So if you're just coming up with a meal day by day, maybe you're going every day to get ingredients, then that can lead to overspending multiple trips throughout the week. Okay, so then meal planning also reduces the panic around that classic "what's for dinner" question. So this will help us eat healthier by not knowing what you're going to have and resorting to takeout, which can be higher in the solid fats or sodium. It's also going to save money by not ordering takeout. So in a pinch, you have a plan for dinner instead of getting dinner out or having all this panic. And finally, meal planning will be healthy because it allows you to be in control of what you're putting in the meal. So you can design it keeping in mind those healthy people goals to be inclusive of those, and you have that knowledge beforehand then. Okay, so we understand the benefits of meal planning. Now, how do we do it? Hopefully, when you're meal planning, it looks less like the picture on the top and a lot more simple like the picture on the bottom, just a more organized grocery list. So first, just be realistic with yourself of how many meals you want to make per week, how often you like to cook. If you don't like to cook that much, maybe you want to do 2 big meals and then you have leftovers for other meals during the week. If you don't like eating the same thing all the time and you don't mind cooking more, you could do that. But I would suggest you don't have to eat the same thing every day, but while still getting the same ingredients, kind of. So you can still use the same vegetables, meats, or grains in different styles for different meals throughout the week. A little tip is for example, grains, so rice. I'll buy a lot of rice that I could use in burritos, burrito bowls, stir fries, whatever. It can apply to lots of different meals, so that's a helpful one to always have on hand and buy in bulk. And a food safety tip is that if you buy fresh meat for a meal during the week, but you're not planning to cook it in the next couple days and you put it in the freezer, remember to take it out of the freezer and thaw it in the fridge about 1 to 2 days before you're cooking with it. That way it's safe. Okay, so meal planning also helps to avoid food waste, which will save money because wasted food can be wasted money. So something a lot of people tend to waste is fresh produce. So work on only buying what you need for the week. So only buy a few fresh fruits and vegetables at a time, and you can always stock up on others as canned or frozen items. So keep in mind when you're buying canned, a lot of canned vegetables, beans, or tomatoes can be high in sodium. So look for the low sodium option and then additionally rinse and drain those foods. And canned fruits can sometimes be canned in heavy syrup, which is going to have a lot of that added sugar. So look for fruit that's canned in water or 100% juice will be healthier. You can also reduce food waste by reusing any leftovers you have for like lunch the next day. And that's going to help you save money by not having to spend money on an additional meal. And additionally, a nice little, very practical item is that you can save vegetable scraps or bones from meat in the freezer, cover it in water, cook it on the stove or in a crock pot if you have one of those for a few hours, and then you have a vegetable stock or a chicken stock. That might be an ingredient you need for another meal and you don't have to actually buy it. So that's a nice way to save some money too. Okay, so I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but I am an unpaid intern. So I really enjoy meal planning to avoid food waste. And I love using grocery apps as a tool to help me do that. So I enjoy ShopRite's the most. ShopRite also tends to have lower price foods, but I have listed out some of the grocery stores you'll find in Northern Delaware and what their app contains. So a lot of them have their weekly circular where you'll find prices or, deals for the week. Some have coupons in there, recipe ideas. So they really do help you out, and they're all free from the App Store. Another tool that is like the most helpful tool when shopping is unit price. So as we move into that, unit price is the price of the food per ounce. So that's just basically saying how to get the most bang for your buck. If you look on this picture, on the price sticker, it's the orange square in the upper left corner, tells you the price per ounce. So you'll see the SpaghettiOs on the left is 98 cents total, but it is 6.6 cents per ounce. And the SpaghettiOs on the right is $2.12, but it is 8.1 cents per ounce. So the SpaghettiOs on the left, having a lower unit price is going to get you more bang for your buck if you ended up buying more of those. Okay, so let's put all this information into practice now. We ran through all that, and practice how we'll actually eat, and let's make a meal. So that comes to our first question that counts of the Zoom recording, how we're going to talk about a mac and cheese. So we'll launch that question. So if your mom or your grandma has a homemade mac and cheese that it's really good, think about what goes into it, like pasta, cheese, probably some butter, heavy cream, maybe even another type of cheese. So which healthy people goal is that homemade mac and cheese going to check off?
About 45%, so please put in your answer. Okay, we have 81%, Kristen, so I'll go ahead and end the polling.
Sure.
Actually, 86%.
Okay. Okay, great. So 79% of you said it's going to check off increasing calcium consumption, which is great because that's correct. With the cheese in mac and cheese, we know that's rich in calcium. A couple of you said whole grain, so we'll move into our next question now, which asks, if we want to, keep this meal, how can we make it healthier? How can we check off more healthy people goals by tweaking our homemade mac and cheese a little?
at 71%.
Okay.
People have voted, so please put in your vote if you have not done so. Great, we're at 90%. And stop the polling.
Okay, yep. So all of the above. So you can make mac and cheese, check off more of those healthy people goals by adding vegetables like broccoli. If you think of broccoli cheddar soup, a lot of people like. I know my mom adds cauliflower to mac and cheese, goes well too. You can use whole grain pasta instead of just, the plain pasta you'll find at the store. And you can also leave out the butter, which is one of those solid fats that we want to decrease our consumption of. Okay, so here is our example now of some meals that we're going to make for the week. So we have a smoothie, mac and cheese, meatballs, tacos, breakfast oatmeal bowl, and a curry stew type of meal. And all these recipes, I believe, are included with the webinar as handouts. Okay, so then we'll just glance at our shopping list. I'll show you how we are using a lot of the same ingredients for those meals. So you'll see first, at the top, I have just 2 bananas, an avocado, and a bag of spinach for our fresh produce, because we don't want to get too much fresh produce that ends up going bad. And then you'll see just to the right of that, I have a lot of canned and frozen produce. So canned diced tomatoes, canned pineapple, frozen fruit, frozen veggies, frozen corn. I'm getting 1 fresh meat for the week, which is chicken. And we're stocking up, we're getting some dairy to get all that vitamin D and calcium we talked about. Okay. So now we're shopping in the store and we come to the peanut butter aisle, which is one of the items we have to get. And you see this Skippy peanut butter nutrition facts label. So we'll go to the next slide. Yes. So looking at this label, how many milligrams of sodium are in 1 serving of this Skippy peanut butter? And you can answer by just typing in the Q&A box or the chat box, I guess. So we're looking for milligrams of sodium. Okay, great. See, we're getting some responses in the chat box. Looks good. Okay, great. So a lot of you said 150, which is great. That is correct. You'll also notice that the Skippy peanut butter has 3 grams of added sugar and it has 3 grams of saturated fat. So keep that in mind as we go to our next peanut butter. When we're in the aisle and we look next to it, we see the nutrition facts label for Crazy Richard's peanut butter. So looking at this one, set up a little differently horizontally, but looking at this label, how many milligrams of sodium are in 1 serving of Crazy Richard's peanut butter? And you can go ahead and type that in the chat box as well. Okay, great. Yep. Okay, so a lot of you answered correctly again. It's 0 milligrams. And you'll also notice it has 0 grams of added sugar and only 2 grams of saturated fat. So a little less saturated fat, less sodium for sure, and less sugar, less added sugar, I should clarify. Okay, so now we have to make our choice. Which peanut butter do we want to buy? And you can select A for the label on the left and B for the label on the right.
About 72%, Kristen.
Okay.
Everyone another second or two. Okay, we'll stop that. There we go.
Great. So 80% of you said we should get A, peanut butter on the left, which is correct. That's what I would suggest too. Even though that one is a little more expensive, it's only 30. Oh, I see someone said they hit B, but meant A. Yeah, so it's only 30 cents more, and you're getting all those. It's a lot richer in nutritional value as we went through the sodium and solid fats and everything. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a little hard to read. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so hopefully these two are easier to read. Next, we come around to the frozen section, and we have to buy frozen corn. So this is actually a screen grab from the ShopRite app of the price for a food product there. So using this price tag, we'll say, for the corn, what is the unit price of this corn? And you can type that in the chat box. So that unit price is telling us the price per ounce of food. Yeah. Okay, looks like, yep, a lot of people got it. It can be a little confusing the way it's written out. It is 8 cents, which they have it written out as $0.08, so that's also 8 cents per ounce. Okay, and then we look at our option next to it in the refrigerator or freezer, and we have the Hanover corn, which is 16 ounces. What is the unit price for this frozen corn though? Great, yeah, we're having people type it in the chat box, that's good. Okay. Yep, so yeah, so this one is 12 cents per ounce. So now knowing that, comparing those two corns, based off of unit price, which corn should we buy? Which is gonna launch the question on the next slide here. If we could move to the next slide, Christine. Oh, sorry, no, you're right. There we go. Okay, yep. So you can just select A for the one on the left again, and B for the corn on the right.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the poll, Kristen. We're at 76% have voted.
Okay. Great, so a lot of people said A. That's right, we're going for the one with the lower unit price, which is gonna give us more bang for our buck. Okay, so on the next slide, then I'll show you a little walkthrough of the ShopRite app. So you'll just see this is kind of what the grocery list looks like in the app. You'll see we got our peanut butter, our oats. You can also see that it's broken up by aisle of food items, which I found to not always be accurate, but at least all the food items are grouped together so you can find them all in the same aisle as you're going through the store. So we got some whole grains, dairy, eggs and cheese, a big thing of yogurt to use throughout the week, and our fresh produce. And then you'll see I selected the boneless, skinless chicken because poultry skin tends to be higher in that solid, saturated fat like we discussed before. Okay. So you'll see the total for this shopping list was only $52.61. And of that, the fruits and vegetable total, both fresh and frozen or canned, was only $16.11. So going into, eating more fruits and vegetables to be healthier really doesn't have to be more expensive. And on our final slide, I just list some additional resources for Delaware or the area specifically. For the Food Bank of Delaware offers Stand By Me program, which is one-on-one financial counseling for anyone, any Delawarean, and it's free, you automatically qualify. And they also do a community-supported agriculture, which only runs during the summer, so keep it in mind for next summer. It's a weekly box of produce from local farmers, which comes out to about $18 a week. And similar to that, there's a lot of popular rescued produce boxes that you can find online. One that serves this area is Hungry Harvest, and that comes out to about $18.49 for fruits and vegetables each week. Yeah, so then if anyone has any questions, we can get into those now.
Great. Thank you so much, Kristen. That was very informative. And we do have quite a few questions today. So I will go ahead and read those off to you. First question is, can you provide suggestions for decreasing salt for soups as we approach the fall and cold weather?
Yeah. So one thing I found, sometimes if you're getting a canned soup and you get Campbell's canned soup, one of those that it's just all the pasta and vegetables or meats packed in without the water, and then it asks you to dump that and then fill the can back up with water and cook the soup that way. One thing you could do with that is you could put it in dump all the contents into a strainer, maybe even give it a quick rinse with the water, and then add it into your pot. So that's rinsing off some of the salt that's on the item, and then add in your water. I also recommend if you're making a homemade soup and it calls for, say, vegetable broth or stock, look for the low sodium stock, or even cut the amount that the recipe is requesting for stock in half. So switch it to, say the recipe says you need 2 cups of vegetable broth, do a cup of vegetable broth and a cup of water.
Great, thank you. Next question we have here is there any benefit to using raw sugar versus granulated sugar?
Say the raw sugar, I haven't looked into that one as much. Professor Liefeld, do you have a?
Yes, so actually there's no real health benefit for the raw sugar. It sounds like it would be better for you, and it is processed a little bit less than granulated sugar, but as far as calories or nutrients that are contained in the raw sugar, there's really no difference between that and white sugar. So if you're trying to choose what type of sugar to purchase, I would go by taste. There is a little bit more molasses left in the raw sugar, which is why it tends to have a little bit more of a brownish color than the white color of granulated sugar. So if you tend to prefer that molasses taste, then you might go with a raw sugar. But as far as health benefits, there's really no health benefit.
Thank you. Next question. If you are trying to lose weight, what can you do for calcium? What can you do for calcium if you remove dairy products?
Right. So dairy is one of the big sources of calcium, but you can get calcium from non-dairy sources as well. So there are salmon or sardines that are canned with the bones. Might sound weird, but that actually increases the calcium amount in those canned fishes. Clams and oysters are also good sources of calcium. as well as cooked collards or cooked turnip greens. If you're looking for, a vegetable that's going to be good with calcium, almonds and walnuts are also good sources as well.
And with that, I just want to add on, if you're buying something like the alternative milks like soy milk or rice milk, almond milk, do take a look at the nutrition facts label. Kristen did a nice job showing you how to find information on that, and usually it's on the side panel of the container. There are some types of soy milk, for example, that are fortified to be really good sources of calcium and vitamin D and some of these other nutrients that you might find in cow's milk, but not all brands are. So take a look at the label, see what it says as far as calcium, what percentage of a daily value it provides. They might not contain any at all. And so there's a really big difference between different brands of these alternative milks, but they can be a really great way of getting those same types of nutrients you would get in cow's milk without having the lactose in there, without having milk protein in there.
Next question. What is your opinion from a nutrition standpoint on the claim that it is not necessary to consume milk during the middle to later stages in life?
Well, I've never heard that claim before, but I would say, milk is good for, the calcium and vitamin D we've said, which are two nutrients that work together to keep your bones nice and strong and healthy, which, bone density tends to decrease throughout or, in the middle to later stages of life. So I'd say if, you don't want to consume milk, go for some of those other options we talked about for calcium just now, and make sure there's vitamin D in there as well.
Yeah, I've never heard that you shouldn't consume milk during the middle to later stages in life. What they might be referring to is that we reach peak bone density around age 30, and after that it's kind of all downhill, but there's actually a lot that we can do through resistance training and through proper nutrition to keep our bone mass as high as possible, keeping our bones strong, as Kristen said, because we do lose some of our bone minerals in our bone tissue as we get older, and so then if we fall, we're more likely to break something. So it's still really important to consume appropriate amounts of calcium and vitamin D as we get older. Now, some people do become more lactose intolerant as they get older, so they might feel like when they're drinking milk or they're eating large amounts of dairy products like yogurt and some types of cheese, that their stomach doesn't feel good. They might experience some bloating, might feel gassy, might get diarrhea. And in those cases, then you can use some of those other sources of calcium and vitamin D that Kristen mentioned. But definitely just as important as we get older, but it might be a little bit harder to tolerate depending on the person.
Great. Next question. How many people in this shopping list meal plan is for? That must be referring to your slides. So how many people, were in the shopping list that you were meal planning for?
Okay, so that shopping list was basically aimed for about 2 people per week. I did go off of, trying to keep the budget to around $60 per week. If you look at the SNAP max benefit amount per month, it breaks down for one person to be about $50 per week, and for 2 people about $90 per week. So we kind of sat on the low end, serving 2 people. But if you think about, what SNAP's going to give you, you could go up to $90 and, still getting all your nutrients for that week then.
Great. And the question someone had was, what about using honey in your tea, coffee, or oatmeal?
So honey is also, a sugar. If, you're adding it instead of sugar into your tea or oatmeal, I'd say it has the same kind of net sugar grams. So it is still like an added sugar kind of. I would really just try focusing though on if you're getting, say, a coffee drink at, you know, a cafe, making sure that some of those have a lot of added sugar, whether it's, you know, just plain sugar or honey. We just want to curb the gram amount, basically.
And then this is just going back to the meal planning that you shared with us. How would that work if there are only 4 dinners planned? And then I'll add on, does that shopping list include food for lunches?
Okay, yeah, so that's a great question. So the meal plan does only have 4 dinners, but a lot of those have a serving size of, like, say 4 people. So then you're gonna have dinner for 2 and lunch for 2 as leftovers. And the second part of that question, oh, how can this, yeah, so then as far as the ingredients on the shopping list, we also are gonna have leftover eggs from our shopping list. So we can use those for lunches with tortillas, cheese. So there's still gonna be leftovers from the foods we bought on the shopping list that you can still put together in a creative way for lunches or dinners as well.
I'm gonna jump in here too, kind of unrelated, but going back to our substitute milk issue. I see someone had commented that they use oat milk instead of cow's milk. And that definitely can be a good substitute as long as it's fortified with the same types of nutrients that cow's milk would give you. And I did just want to make a quick note of the fact that cow's milk really is a great option for a lot of people. If you look at it as price per quart, for example, it tends to be a lot less expensive than some of these substitutes that are out there, like oat milk and cashew milk and almond milk and soy milk. So from a price point, since we're talking about healthy eating on a budget, unless you have a reason that you need to not drink cow's milk or you just don't like the taste of it, there's really no nutritional benefit to drinking soy milk instead of cow's milk, or drinking oat milk, or drinking cashew milk. But again, you know, if taste-wise you don't like cow's milk, then that's an obvious reason to not drink cow's milk. Or if you are lactose intolerant or have a milk protein allergy, then by all means use a substitute. But I think this impression has kind of gotten out there when I talk to people that cow's milk is bad for you and you need to avoid it. And there have been some diets out there, like the paleo diet and some other diets that have had people eliminating dairy products, so cow's milk and yogurt and things made from cow's milk. And really there's not any evidence that you're better off drinking one of these substitute milks. So if it's, again, if it's a taste issue, if it's an intolerance issue, then by all means drink something different. But if you're trying to get the most bang for your buck, then actually cow's milk a lot of times is the best option.
Thank you. And next question we have is, my child's very picky about vegetables. How am I supposed to increase their variety?
Okay, yeah. So say your child only likes, you know, green vegetables and they don't like orange or something. That's where I kind of would work on, you know, you could blend it into smoothies or into a soup where maybe they're not going to see it and the color is similar to something they're eating. Or even with the berry smoothie I showed on the meal plan that had some kale in it or spinach, but you don't see it because the berries have a stronger color. But like, I would say that's a last resort. You want to try to offer your children, you know, all fruits and vegetables, you know, try to get them to enjoy it. And an option you could do is, you know, okay, you give them 2 options. Okay, you know, we can have the meatballs with broccoli tonight or with cauliflower, or even 2 different ones that are more different, but giving them a choice, but a limited choice, so that they can, that they feel that they had the choice to kind of choose the meal a little bit, and they can choose something that they like, but they're still getting that variety.
And I think they say, depending on the age of the child, sometimes you have to offer food 12 times before you know for a fact whether the child really doesn't like the food or not, which if you really think about offering something 12 times and having it rejected, I completely understand that that's incredibly frustrating. You've made this food and, 11 times now they haven't eaten it. Do you really want to offer it a 12th time? But that is what the research suggests. So keep offering it. Don't make a big deal out of it. And also being a good role model can make a big difference. So if the parents never eat or caregivers never eat vegetables, it's rare that a child will pick up on it and say, okay, I really want, all these vegetables. But I think Kristen gave some really nice strategies for how you can give the child the choice of which vegetable to have. And if all else fails, you can blend it into smoothies or hide it in meatloaf and things like that.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kristen, for your presentation today. And thank you, Anya, as well, for being with us and assisting with questions. Those are all the questions I have from our audience today. And I want to thank our attendees for joining us here for our webinar on this Wednesday and this beautiful day. And to remind you all that we do have another webinar coming up next Wednesday at 2 p.m. The topic is putting mindfulness into practice. And for those of you who may have joined us in the summer, we had Dr. McKinsey and Alyssa. They will be with us again presenting on that topic. This one will be a little bit more interactive. So please join us. Tell your friends and colleagues about these webinars as well, and that they need to pre-register ahead of time. The link to the registration will go out later today, as well as the eval for this webinar will go out later today. So once again, thank you, Kristen and Anya, for being with us today. And thank you, Noel, for co-hosting with me. And with that, say thank you, and I hope everyone has a great day.